Hi, everybody. Welcome back to our last panel this morning. The rest is up to us. I think it might be worthwhile, possibly even rewarding for you all, if I was to read the entire last sentence or two that Philip wrote, that it contains that quote, "The rest is up to us." So this is from Phillip McMahon's essay. It's on page 45 for those of you who are actually following from the publication. What is a play? In the end, plays are just plays. They are just words on a page. They are merely a proposition, a question in and of themselves. The rest is up to us. It's up to us to impose our own meaning, to interpret them fiercely, to transform them soulfully, to receive them openly, to shower them in glitter and electric light, and then change the fucking world with them. So this panel, the rest is up to us, has the following fabulous contributors, and they are John Comiskey, Denis Clohessy, Fiona Keller, and Elaine Murphy. Over to you guys. Over to Elaine. Yeah.
Hi, Siobhan. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. I'm going to do a quick introduction before we start. I'm going to go in alphabetical order. So we'll start with Denis Clohessy, who is a stage composer. And rather than me introduce Denis, I was going to ask Denis to introduce himself. And in the spirit that these talks will be available on YouTube at a later date, we're going to take it that if somebody is coming in to this industry for the very first time, that they may not know what everybody behind the scenes does. So Denis, if you wouldn't mind just letting us know what your job is and how you bring the play to life.
Hi everybody, I'm Denis Clohessy and I'm a composer and sound designer for theatre. I'm also a composer for film and television as well. I've been working, I guess, 20 plus years and I've been really enjoying it so far.
That's brilliant. John, we'll move over to you.
Hey, I'm John Comiskey, and in theatre I work mostly as a lighting designer, set designer, video designer, but I have a parallel existence as a director in film and TV, which I sometimes pull into what I'm doing in the theatre. I've been working for 20 plus years, yes, I still enjoy it. I absolutely enjoy it. It's always a challenge. And everything that you come to brings you somewhere new. That's what I find. It's a completely new world you're entering into every time, and that's what keeps it stimulating and interesting.
Fantastic, thanks. And Fiona, nice to meet you. If you could tell us what you do as well, please.
Hi everyone, I'm Fiona. I'm a stage manager for theatre, dance, all forms of plays. And yeah, I've been doing this for about 15 years. It's being in the room, I suppose, is one of the best things about being a stage manager. You get to be the person who sees it from the very beginning to the very end when the show comes down and you do get it. So you're there for all the little intricate little bits and pieces that happen along the way.
Fantastic, thank you. So what I was going to ask everybody today is, I'm a playwright, and the discussion today is about the role of the cast and the creative team bringing new work to the stage. So assuming we have a brand new play or a really rough draft or a really good idea of a brand new play, at what stage would you guys normally get involved? I'll ask you, John, first, if that's okay.
Well, frequently we're involved a little later than we should be. I would say as soon as possible would be my answer to that, particularly with a new play, because you start becoming alert to the issues around it. You become alert to possibilities that might be explored if there were time to explore them. And if you're brought into the process relatively late in the day, and essentially you're presented with something where maybe a lot of the avenues have been closed off already, you know, even around ideas such as venue. Someone might come to you with something and you look at it and they say, we're thinking of doing this play. If they don't have a venue, and the whole discussion around venue and the shape of the performance and the relationship to the audience becomes an incredibly important part of what a designer does. But if they come to you saying, you know, it's in the cube, we get in on Monday, it has to open on Wednesday, you know, and a whole load of things have already been boxed in around the thing. And a whole level of exploration is removed. So really, ideally, before even the venue is chosen, it's not always the case, but that's the best option, I think, especially with new work.
Fantastic. Denis, how about you? What stage do you normally come in?
I think, yeah, like John, I think I probably end up getting the call pretty late. I mean, I've had calls right up till the week before it opens, you know, where they've done 3 weeks of rehearsal and it's like, we need something here. So, I mean, I think usually if I can get, you know, particularly with new work, there tends to be a development period as well now. This is becoming kind of more common, which is really helpful. So you can do like a week or two development work. And again, project by project, it depends. Is there going to be live music? Is it going to be, does the director or production team know what they're after already? Is it driven by a playwright and not a director? You know, so depending on where the emphasis is coming from, there's different timings necessary for when I might get involved. I mean, I think if it's going to go into production, you know, at least a month or two beforehand is useful. You know, it's different for a set designer where they have to get white cards and all that kind of stuff together. So, I mean, and also you cut your cloth. You know, if you are called in a week before opening, that's what you're dealing with. If you've got a year to work on it, that's what you're dealing with. And then also budget has a big impact, particularly when you're looking at equipment and gear and all that kind of stuff that plays such a big impact in the sonic experience, you know.
Fantastic. Thanks, Denis. And Fiona?
Yeah, likewise, it can depend. With new scripts, it's often I don't get called in for development as much, but if it was a devised piece, I'd generally be called in for development. And then, yeah, like that, it could be, you could arrive and work's already happened on a script. They've had numerous readings. So in a sense, the play has become solid before the first day of rehearsals. Or otherwise you can walk in and it's a really open space. Everybody's opinion is welcome and it evolves from day one. It really depends on the company and how they work. And like Denis said, who's driving the project? Is it a director? Is it a playwright? Because all of those things are different. But yeah, as echoed, I'll echo everybody else. The earlier, the better, I would say.
Just, John, you mentioned something there when you were speaking there. You said that it's later and later as the years have gone by. Do you feel that since, I don't know, like at what stage did you think you were getting the call later and later? Is that a recent thing? Is that in the last 10 years?
I'd say it's the last 10 years. And it's partly, I think, to do with people not getting necessarily even their funding until later and later. They don't know where they are. When companies had 3-year fundings and things, they could plan things 2 years out. Now they've got a project and they might get the money or they might not get the money. I mean, I have a couple of those going at the moment of things I was involved in development during lockdown, when we were all twiddling our thumbs. And whether any of those things will happen or not, I have no way of knowing at the moment. But we do have the benefit already of having had the discussion, even though there was no money. I mean, Denis mentioned, budget, the dreaded word budget. But one of the things I always try to point out to people is that, if you get people in earlier, then you can get your budget to go farther because you can make clever choices. You have time to look for the thing that will work for you and not cost the earth. I think also there's some kind of fear sometimes. And I think, frankly, it's to do with the less experienced companies, that they need to present you with, look, here's exactly what we're doing, to make you feel like they know what they've got, Whereas I think the more open people, and I would make a big note here for dance companies, because dance companies always bring people in early in the process. It's absolutely built into the DNA now of dance work. There's a period, a week, 1 year, and then 2 weeks, 6 months before the production, and then something, and then the production period. And it's terrific because everybody really gets to bat it around, With respect to plays, I think a lot of the time as well, written plays, there's the whole business of wanting to polish the script and polish the script and polish the script and polish the script. And in point of fact, for a designer, don't necessarily need the script to be absolutely polished. I mean, I did a play some years ago with Dan Shepherd, and he was throwing out pages. Entire speeches were going right up until the day the thing opened. The process started a long time before that. So everybody was able to roll with that. And when the pages were being thrown out, we kind of knew why, But I do think there's a sort of a desire to present you with a little jewel that you are supposed to embellish somehow, as opposed to giving you something that's a malleable thing. I went to a workshop years ago with Kazimierz Brown, a Polish director, and he's a very cavalier attitude, some might say, to script. He believes that a production is, can be as much a reaction to a script as a production of a script, and that depends on the nature of what's handed to you. If you don't have time to evolve the argument with the script, get into your own discussion with the script, and that whole side of reacting to it as well as illustrating it, if you like, is lost.
Yeah, that's one of the things thank you everybody actually who I put up a tweet yesterday and some notes on Facebook for people to send me in questions. Thank you to everyone who did send me in their questions and their thoughts. Some people even went to the trouble of ringing me, which I really appreciate. Some of the stuff that they came up with seems to be there's a big problem with the project funding at the minute, and which is the reason why we're all kind of getting these last minute calls. The scripts kind of have to go on, whether they're ready or not, we'll make it happen. I know what you were saying there, John, about that the scripts, they don't necessarily need to be polished, but I think they very necessarily need to have that time to breathe, that we know the world they're in, that I know even for myself recently, I've been working on something, and because the creative team were there from the get-go, we kind of knew what we were working with. I had a very rough draft of what I wanted to kind of do with it. The creative team were there from the get-go. There was one scene in particular that I couldn't move on to. I didn't know how to fix it. And the designer was able to pop in and say, actually, I can do that for you. You don't need to write anything. And I was like, genius, And I've never had that happen in a play before, because what's been happening up till now, because I started in 2009, what's been happening up to now is that it's pretty much go write the play, give us the play. If we think it's good enough, we'll put it on. And that's on the condition that we get the funding. And then it's all kind of a big rush and everything is getting done at the last minute. So if you had an ideal world, what do you think could be some of the things we could do for now that we would love to change? Pretend money is no object or whatever it is. Fiona, if you wouldn't mind trying this one out for me, is there anything that you think we could do that would make the process a bit easier for us?
I think time. I think COVID actually has been really beneficial for some companies who've never done a development, reading workshops with a full creative team and their cast, time to play with it in a room before an audience needs to see it. And then a couple of weeks, a couple of months in between that before you go back in and start the actual rehearsal process. That time is really, it's amazing what can be achieved in that time. When you have time to think, when you have time to breathe, and where every member of the team becomes part of the DNA because they've been there from the day one. And when we start rehearsals, then everybody's coming in with a kind of clearer view of what it is we're trying to achieve. We mightn't be there yet, but we all have an idea of what's kind of working and what needs work. And what Denis could do, having been thinking about something and about how the music could help move stuff along, how the lights, how the set, which may not even have been considered before day one, might now be, there might be a shape of what could work for that. It doesn't need to be naturalistic. It could be as abstract as we want. And actually, maybe it being really abstract is what will help the play in some places. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But you need time to do that, because everybody needs time to think about those things. So yeah, for me, time, development, so important for new work.
Yeah. And Denis, I'll ask you this one. Do you think the company model is what's needed, or do you think it's, you know, I mean, I think what's happening at the minute for a lot of people is we have the company model for the younger people starting out, maybe entering the industry, and there's all these kind of great initiatives to get them going, get them started. But as you kind of hit your 30s and you want things like, I don't know, a house, or, you know, go off and have a family or whatever it is. We have a huge problem, I think, with talent drain. And all of that wonderful knowledge is just leaving because people can't sustain it. And I'm just wondering, is there, the company model, I think, is breaking when people get to that age, and we can't really continue on with it. Is there something in maybe a collective of people who could get together who have this kind of collective knowledge that we can make, you know, when new writing comes along, we can start looking at it that, okay, maybe it's not suitable if it's a big play. Sorry, I'm kind of losing track there a little bit. What I'm talking about is when Sonia said there at the end of her talk was that if she feels that if she wrote a play with 15 people, if it's good enough, we'll be able to make it. And at the moment, I think those structures and supports don't exist for that play, unless it's something like the Abbey, but then you're in a building and you're not, you know, it's a totally different kind of experience. For anybody outside of that, is there something maybe that there's some kind of collective that we can make, that wealth of experience can be there, and there's some kind of support system needed? Like, is there anything in that maybe, do you think, that we could start doing?
I mean, you know, I'm probably the wrong person to ask in that I don't really keep up with what the Arts Council applications allow. And I know that, you know, obviously companies have reduced the number of companies from kind of when I started, there was probably 50 or 60 companies. I mean, I think when you get to that level of cast, you need a support team behind that as well. It's kind of like going to war. You can't just rely on your frontline soldiers. You actually need the support, you know, you need the catering and the transport or whatever else. So like you talk about marketing, and you're talking about stage management and costuming and all that kind of stuff are just on a bigger scale. So it really becomes like when you're applying, if you have an ambitious project and you're applying for it, probably the most important thing is probably to get a really good producer in place and someone who's experienced in that regard. And they're just going to give you the grim truth. And if you're happy enough to get through that, you know, knowing that, and, you know, often those productions can be the most rewarding, that you've gone, I'm just going to do this regardless of what reality is telling me. And if it's ambitious and large scale, and as Sonia said, you know, if you believe in this idea, I mean, you have to believe in it. You can't just be like, I've got a grant, now I'm going to go make a play. You know, you have to have the belief in your idea in the first place, and the commitment, and then work with people who you can share that commitment and belief with as well, because a project of that scale is just not a one-person show. That has to be, you have to involve people and inspire other people to get involved as well. And that's when you can create the magic. I mean, I remember, you know, back in the day, but back in 2005, we did Titus Andronicus on a shoestring, but it was a massive cast, and we got through it because everyone wanted it to work. But it was like, there was, you know, shouting and tears and all sorts of stuff. But because everyone at the end of the day believed in the project, that's what got it over the line. And that's what's important.
Yeah. John, how do you feel about that?
Well, there's two things here. The first thing is, I think you can have a company, which is, if you like, a ready-made collective of like-minded people, because that's why they're a company. Or you can, I mean, a lot of the best stuff I've been involved with over the years has started as a loose assembly of people, where somebody has come along and said, look, I have an idea for this thing, and I haven't written it yet, but would you be interested in coming down to Anna for a few days till we kick it around, you know? And a lot, again, it's something that I don't hear much anymore. A lot of the work I was involved in decades gone by began precisely out of loose gatherings in places like Anna or even somebody's house every week for an hour or two, just as something was kicked into some kind of shape. With regards to the scale of the thing, obviously it becomes more difficult. I can't help but think that if you're writing something that requires 20 people, then, you know, that's what you've got to do. You know, you've got to follow that instinct. And if, having written it for 20 people, somebody comes back and says, well, you know, like a Shakespeare play with doubling, we can actually make this happen on 10, you know, or if you just shift one little thing, we can. I mean, you know, ways can be found around that problem, as well as the let's all, you know, dig in and do it, which Denis has described, and which is always the best feeling of all, I have to say, is the production that is made in defiance of all odds. But we can't live by that, you know, we just can't live. And when Sonia was saying that, I was struck by something, which is that tonight in Paris, the Théâtre du Soleil are opening their new show, which has been delayed by COVID for over a year, and there'll be at least 40 people on the stage. All their shows involve vast numbers of people, vast casts, and they managed to make the thing possible by working as a collective. They do have a lot of support, built support over the years, but they never ever have backed off, even in the worst financial straits, from saying, this is who we are, this is how we work, and this is what we do. And I think that applies to a solo performer as much as it does to a big collective. It's that idea that this is what we need to be doing now. Once that need is there, you have to answer that need, regardless of its shape or size. You just have to find a way to do it, really, you know. I was involved in a work in progress a few years ago, which was a small-scale production, and a group of us had come together precisely to work on it as a kind of thing. And we were going to present it as a work in progress, and we actually didn't in the end, because we felt what it needed was a production. We felt that a work in progress would be kind of a half-assed thing. It wouldn't show the thing to its full strength. So we actually didn't do it. It still hasn't made its way to production. I'm a fervent believer that it will. And it is that thing of sort of saying, well, the path isn't always the same. You know, when that show comes to production, its path will have been quite different from others. And I think being open to new paths as well as new ideas is part of how to get things made in a difficult environment.
That's great. Thanks, John. I just have a question come in there from Willie White. Do people think there are enough venues of the right size in Dublin to support new writing? How do you feel about that, Fiona?
To support new writing, I suppose we don't have a huge amount of venues anymore. So, I mean, like, that's a bigger cultural question about what are we doing as a country in terms of our culture and our support, because, like, we've got, like, the New Theatre, there's a lot of new writing. You've got Smock Alley, but I feel that's more like a devised space, or bigger companies use it in a creative way. It's like every venue has a place, I think, in our country. Like, I think they've all pigeonholed a little hold of something, but do we support them enough, or do they offer enough support? That I don't know, and I don't think I can answer that, because I'm not the person who makes the plays or writes the plays.
I spoke to a couple of people yesterday, and one of the things that came up is that there is nowhere to really, most new plays need time to breathe. I was very lucky the first time out with my play that I got a week in the Civic before we went into town, and then we got a couple of weeks in town. Then there was a break of 6 months. We went back, we went on tour, and out of that, my show was able to go and get better and better and better. Even now, when it's going back on, I'm able to go in and say, you don't need that. You can get rid of that, you know, like each time it goes on. But I'm very aware that I've done other plays that go up, they're on for a week, they're gone, you know, and it's really hard to get them back. And one of the problems people have been saying to me is that in the venues, you may only have 2 nights here, 2 nights there. There's no sustained period that you can go in and just really work that show. The venues seem to be quite small. We have the likes of the Viking, which is 70 people. If you have a show of any kind of scale, there's kind of nowhere to do that, or unless, you know, depending where you want to go or whatever. One of the things that people came up to me and said was that the financial risk is too high with new writing, that it's harder to sell. It's when people don't know what they're coming to, it's much harder to sell, it's much harder to market. And I'm just wondering if anybody has any ideas of, is there anything we could do to make new writing a bit more palatable, I suppose?
Well, if I make, and one of the things there is precisely the company model. And I think that's one of the things where the project thing doesn't work, particularly if you're out of the loop of Dublin theatre goers. Whereas if a company puts on a new play and the play is going to wherever, I mean, if for example, you know, Druid or Fishamble, who have a name, so there are people who are prepared to take the risk to go to see a show that Druid is doing, because even though they've never heard of the playwright, because they know that company and they trust that company, or they know the style of a company and they like the style of a company. Like Barabbas, Veronica Coburn's company would have been an example of that. Now, when you take away that company identity, it makes the marketing, I think, all the harder, because you're asking people to bet on a group of people they've never heard of and a play they've never heard of. Mm-hmm. So I think the company model really can help that. And just with respect to Willie's question about space, I think sometimes it's to do with the diversity of the spaces not being available. There's hardly any kind of ad hoc spaces available now. So you end up with a choice of things that are kind of much the same, whether it's like the Civic or Drake or wherever. You know, there's a lot of similar venues, but it would be nice to see some venues of a more diverse shape, I feel.
That's great, John. Thanks a million. Another thing, and I'd love to hear people's thoughts about this. Pamela McQueen, is it helpful? The local authority award supported by a local venue is the space where I've been able to kick the ideas around with a playwright as exploration pre a defined development process. Yeah, that's something definitely that people can look into themselves, get in touch with their local authorities. I know Fingal for me have been amazing. They've put me in touch with Driocht. I've had other smaller projects with Driocht that I've been involved in. And just even go to your local authority and talk to them. One of the big things for me was when I was at home with 2 small children, it was like playwriting kind of turned into this really expensive hobby that I couldn't do very often. I'm only kind of getting back into it now, but one of the great things that happened out of it was when I went to the local authority in Fingal and I spoke to them, and they said to me, well, what do you need? Do you need to go away to Annie McCarrick? Do you need to do something? And like genuinely, I kind of said to even get to Tesco is a big deal at the minute. So, you know, if we could have something a little more easier. So what they were able to do was give me an artist grant. And out of that artist grant, I was able to get childcare for 3 hours a day and start building my practice again, which was a huge help. So definitely get in touch with your local authority for people who are writing, who will be doing long projects. We all know as writers that so much of it is on your own back for a good year before you talk to anybody or get paid anything or anything like that. So definitely talk to your local authorities. One of the things I was talking to another producer about yesterday, and this is possibly a solution. They were saying that risk is a big thing in lately. It's even if you get some Arts Council funding, for an independent producer or even a company to take on the risk of a new show, is a lot. And they were wondering if there was some kind of like an angel network where they could have a couple of independent producers who could come in and support a production that would maybe be backed by the Arts Council, supported by the Arts Council, and that we would have that kind of collective. How do people feel about that kind of a collective that we would bring that play, myself, Sonia, whoever it is, and we'd say, okay, we have this play for 10 people and we're looking to develop it. But everybody has been saying that it's the long-term breathing space it needs, that it's the thing to get the creatives in at the beginning to help people out. I'll ask you, Denis, how do you think that would be to have something like that? Could you see that working on a practical sense?
Yeah, I mean, an aspect of it will work. I mean, you have to be careful that it's not about commercial theatre. You know, that could become a thing that it's, you know, so you want to make sure that it's a space that people can create all styles and all types of theatre, I guess. And the other thing, just to go back again to Willie's point, is the spaces that we work in. Again, we do, you know, a lot of the time to implement design input, we're going to need some equipment and some gear, you know, so that's why if you need a lighting rig or if you need a sound system, it's important to have venues that are willing to set aside a week or two where they don't have any box office coming in and hand that over to a bunch of misfits, you know what I mean? So, but I think with the angel thing, yeah, I mean, I think, like if there's a support with a view to that this is an exploratory process and there is no potential box office at the end of it even, you know, that it's just something that's going to get us started off, see how it's feeling, are people inspired by the idea, and can we take it further?
That's great. Thanks. There's a few more questions coming in. Sorry, guys. Okay, this one's from Connor Hanratty. It's really eye-opening hearing from you about all your needs and work in the creation of new work. Perhaps selfishly, can I ask you to comment on how you see the role of a director in the staging of a new play? And I will ask Fiona that one.
I mean, the director obviously is important as their vision. I suppose with new writing, it can be so different because every director is so different. You know, some directors can be so text-based, you know, they're really into pulling the text apart, getting as much out of that as possible. And others are more big picture about, obviously the words are important, but how that's staged, how those words are, you know, bounced across the stage. So, I mean, every director is different, but each director brings their own viewpoint to each new piece that they make. Likewise with every designer they work with, every cast member they hire, everybody who's involved in the process, I think, has a huge input, particularly in new stuff, because when you're trying to work things out in the room, it's those people in the room who are the ones who help fix it, help move it forward. So that wouldn't have happened without everybody in it. And then the director is the one who oversees that all and says, well, that'll work for this, or that won't work for this, or let's try it. So, I don't know, that sounds cool. Yeah, let's give it a go. Let's see what happens. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, it depends on the director.
Sorry, there's more coming in. Colette Del Garno, I hope that's not a question, but I found Little Room Initiative in Waterford for working at refining and showcasing a piece and getting feedback is great. That's fantastic, Colette. If people have any more of those kind of like little rooms that they work in or anything like that, please let us know, because I think especially over the pandemic, people have felt really isolated, and we're kind of reaching out to each other. And I know, especially over Zoom, as much as people hate it and love it or whatever reason, for me, it's opened up a whole network of people that I never worked with before. I'm getting to attend meetings that I never would have been able to attend before. I'm getting to see and hear people from like Connemara, Donegal. Like it's wonderful actually being able to connect with all these people in this way, and even being able to do little things like rehearsals over Zoom has been amazing, which brings us back to accessibility actually. This is a big thing that came up in Philly's essay. we know the obstacles. We know there's a big talent drag going on. We know that a lot of people feel locked out of theatre, whether it's, you know, they can't afford a ticket. It's just not something that was taught in school. That was one thing that really struck me in Philly's essay when he mentioned about doing the Gná Béal on the English Leaving Cert, because I too was in that situation where we weren't offered honours English, and I did it and didn't do great in it, but however, it was one of these days we both end up on the Leaving Cert, I hope, Philly, and show them all. But anyway, what I would love is this, I think the thing we've been missing is the new voice. Well, not that we haven't, we've had them to an extent, but actually we haven't been able to raise the new voices, because all of the new work, when I started looking and researching about this, any kind of new work, big new work things that were coming on, all the articles were from 2008, 2007. And the big kind of like, let's get the new work out there, you know. And I feel that a lot of the plays, and I know a lot of playwrights feel like this, when they're asked to write plays and to get started, it's like, don't put a sofa on your set, you know, that will cost a van to bring it somewhere, something that'll go in a bag, you know what I mean? And so I'm just wondering, is there a way we can reach people, people that we would normally not be able to? I think the whole streaming on live has opened up a lot of stuff for people, and maybe it's allowing people that would have never been in the theatre to come along and see it and go, oh, what's that all about, you know? So if anybody has any ideas about collectives or anything like that, just again, just put it all up. Sorry, there's more. Thanks to the same. This session is very encouraging to early stage playwrights. That's great, Ruiz. Thanks. I'm just wondering, has anybody any thoughts about how we could encourage new voices to come into the spirit, Denis?
Well, I think, you know, ask people like John or myself, or people that have been kind of around, you know, don't be scared to ask people, do you want to work on a project? You know, I mean, there's lots of people that just go, oh, I just know my friends from college, I'll work with them. But like, put the word out. I mean, it doesn't mean that we're always going to be free or whatever, but like, you know, try it out and see what people love getting involved in new work. That's exciting. And actually, you know, a challenge with a smaller budget, not always great, but you know, it's nice every now and then to try and use that as something to create new work with.
Yeah, John?
I mean, it's a real stimulus to work with people you've never worked with before. Just as Denis was describing, that thing of staying with your mates from college is always really important at the start. I think that's kind of what everyone did, or your mates from the youth theatre or wherever you've assembled them, or the band. But it's, you know, it's the only way to expand your own thinking is to get out of that group ultimately. And whilst, I mean, Denis and myself constantly meet in rooms with the same people around us, and you do find yourself repeatedly working with groups of people that you like to work with and who like to work with you. But it is so stimulating to go and work with people you've never worked with before, work with a new writer or a completely new group of people. It's the lifeblood for us in many ways. And just actually one thing occurred to me in as part of this and part of Willie's observation, which is we don't have a theatre house. We have a dance house, but we don't have a theatre house. You know, we don't have a place where people can hang out or the casual reading of a Tuesday morning of something, you know, where whoever might happen to be in the building can pop in, and you know, where things can be given a room just to work in, to read, to move around a bit in. That facility is completely absent. And I think if when we're looking to put in an infrastructural facility, I think that would be a really useful one. Somewhere that had some rehearsal space, some reading rooms, a library even possibly, a meeting space, where precisely if someone's a new playwright, you can walk in and, you know, and just talk to people, you know, and say hello and get to know who's there and find somebody who's interested in them, you know.
sorry, a little question popped in there just as we were talking. Older actors are available. Yes, older writers as well, and everyone.
And older designers.
We're all up for that, thankfully. That was from me, Burke.
I think that's important, though, is a mix of experience. Like, it is fun
Absolutely.
with loads of your friends who are all fresh out of college, but sometimes having, even be it an experienced production manager, somebody behind them, that can elevate your show so much, and you can learn so much from them and they will learn so much from you. It's such a collaborative thing. But yeah, a mix of experiences can completely change how a room works, and it can be really, really exciting to be involved in that.
And even just a couple of people got through to me during because Arts Council funding has been so ongoing for everyone. A few people got in touch with me over the last few months, and people have an assumption that you're always busy, or that's call us. We love hearing from you. Like, everybody's always happy to get a call that somebody knows you're alive. So it's like, as freelancers, we're always happy to get a call, even just to give advice. I know myself getting back into it, people have been really good to me about just taking the time. I'd say, listen, can I pick your brain about something? Absolutely, no problem. Let's do a Zoom, let's do a call, let's do a coffee, whatever suits at the time. So I think the big message coming out of this for people who may have felt pushed away or anything like that is get in contact with your community. Even if you don't know people or you see them on Twitter or whatever it is, send them a little message, because I'm sure people would be really happy to help you out whatever way they can. Hi, Siobhan, you're there.
Hi, Elaine. Hi, Elaine. I'm jumping back in again, guys, to kind of wrap up, if that's okay, and to thank you all so much for a really interesting conversation there. On The Rest Is Up to Us. And of course, I'm sure many of the people watching this are looking at going, isn't it interesting who they put in the category of us? And may have their own comments on that. But I want to thank you all very, very much. Denis Clohessy, Fiona Keller and John Comiskey, and especially Ms. Elaine Murphy for her superb chairing of the session, actor and writer. Scream, who we all know here from ITI very well from all her years with us in the attic. Her time in the attic, not years, excuse me, her time in the attic.
Years, Siobhan, tell the truth. I wouldn't leave.
I wouldn't leave. And so then just to say, guys, we have a few pieces of information to share with everybody. One piece of internal ITI housekeeping is to say to all our participants this morning that November 10th is the deadline for the Phelim Donlan Award, for all the writers on the call. Please do look at the award and the criteria, and if you're eligible, please make an application. You have until the 10th of November. The next thing we'd ask you all very much to do is to share the publication. Please do share the publication. We think these essays are really, really strong, and we're really delighted with them. And we'd like, obviously, everybody to read them. And we ourselves will share them widely after the symposium. Do follow us on social media. And then just to say to you that tomorrow, day 2, we have 3 sessions coming up tomorrow. Do come back. The first one is on plays and publishing, fabulous panel for that. We have a second session on plays and documentation. And for that one, we have 4 contributions, all which are filmed. And so if you look at the program Symposium that you got, the Symposium's program rather, you'll see who those contributors are. And Dr. Barry Houlihan is making a live response to those. And then the final session of the day is on non-verbal theatre. Again, a really fascinating session. I think it will be because we've got huge challenges in ITI with playography in terms of our criteria on new writing with no words. I think that's it, guys, for now. I'd like to thank all the team and to thank you all very much for staying with us. It's been an absolute delight to have you, and look forward to seeing you all again tomorrow.